What is going on, Bills fans? I am Lance Nelson, the president of Built in Buffalo. To my right is Benjamin Shoop, and to my left is Scott Casson. This is another episode of the Triple Coverage Podcast. Matt Milano is going to miss some time, boys, and we have a game this week in Pittsburgh. All that and more. Get in the comments. Let us know the things you're thinking, and we'll let this show evolve into what it will be. But first, the Matt Milano injury. Next man up. Give us your thoughts, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, right? I mean, we were all excited to see him come back from his leg injury, and you know, we were talking about, is he going to be ready for week one? Even if he wasn't, we kind of knew, you know, we'll go from there, right? We'll see what happens the first few weeks, then he'll be back, and the defense should be good. But now he's out till most likely December, maybe even later, maybe a little bit. I mean, I haven't seen even until about too much sooner than December, but you know, a minimum December, he's going to be out till. And at that point, who knows? It could be too late for him to kind of come back. But it sucks. It sucks to see a guy like Matt Milano go down, especially a guy who, you know, isn't getting any younger. And it's not like he's, you know, Von Miller's age, but he's still like, he plays a very physical position. He's had some injuries in the past besides this, and it's just, you know, they add up. So for Matt Milano, it sucks to see, especially, again, I saw some people talking about his cap hit and saying, oh, well, you know, this happened, and now he's got another guy that's a big cap hit that is just not going to play for the Bills. And, you know, it's as much as that, yes, sucks, it's not something you can exactly play into account, right? You can't take into account that, oh, this, you know, because this guy got injured, his cap hit, it sucks even more now. Well, it happens. Every team has these injuries that happen, right? You see Vikings with J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, they got pretty lucky with Jordan Addison, it looked like, who could have been out a while. But those are two guys that are, you know, on heavier rookie deals compared to most, and that could have been another just another team that has money that's tied up into injuries. So it happens with every team. You'll see it, especially even the next few weeks. Guys will go down, you know, and anybody that plays fantasy knows, have your draft later in the preseason, after the preseason, because these injuries will happen. But with Matt Milano, I mean, it'll be nice to see some of these guys maybe step up, like Dorian Williams. You know, he's kind of the one that maybe stands out the most because he is younger. See if he can step up like Terrell Bernard did last year. But you just hope the best for Milano injury-wise, hoping that he can recover fast. And if the Bills are in a position where they need to rush him back, hopefully he can be rushed back without too big of a risk for it to be a huge issue or a huge risk for him to play. So we'll see what goes on, see how Dorian Williams plays, Nick Morrow, Deion Jones, guys that can step up. But, you know, they played without him last year for a while. I think they can do it again this year, and they can hopefully still be in that spot to be in the playoffs and make a run, hopefully when he starts to become healthier.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is it sucks. Like, he's a really good player. He was all pro 2 seasons ago, was playing maybe even better last year before he got hurt. And he's just one of those guys that, like, we love in Buffalo. He's a 5th-round pick. He's, you know, grinded it out. He was here before the Bills were good. He's kind of part of that, like, rebuild group. And just, you know, especially the year after Trey White had his back-to-back injuries, it's just kind of like almost makes you feel like that again. So it just sucks because, 1, he's a really good player, but 2, he's a leader on that defense. He may not be the most vocal guy. I don't really think he talks at all, but just like lead by example type guy. And like, you want to play hard because he's playing so hard next to you. So yeah, next man up, like we said. That's why they drafted and signed all these linebackers. We said, you know, on our roster preview, we felt the linebacker position was probably the deepest position group on the team. And that's really going to be tested now. And we're going to find out. And this is one of the reasons that they did that, because Milano's health was a question. Obviously, no one thought that, you know, his meaty biceps that he has were going to get injured, but his leg, like, we weren't sure exactly what he was going to look like. So, obviously, you don't want injuries. They're never a good thing, but I do think this is one that they will be able to bounce back from. They're really deep at linebacker. That's why they drafted Dorian Williams last year. That's why they signed Nick Morrow. That's why they drafted Ulo out of Washington this season. Brought in Deion Jones as a camp body to maybe see if he has any, you know, shades of 2019 left in him. So Glass half full, I'll say that, maybe it's a little bit better that it happened in the preseason versus week 5 like last year. Because now they have some time to figure it out. They can see, like, is Dorian Williams the guy? Can Nick Morrow step in if he's healthy? If not, they can maybe address it from outside. Make a move, bring someone in, free agents available, something like that. So it really sucks, and he's a really good player. But I do think that this defense still can be really good in his absence.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the ceiling is maybe a little bit lower because you're never going to say the Bills defense is going to be better without Matt Milano. That's not something I'm ever going to say. So the ceiling maybe gets a little bit lower for this defense not having him. But look, still a window for return potentially. People are talking December. I'm thinking, December 29th against the Jets at home would be a great debut game for Matt Milano. Get him a couple games under his belt before going into the postseason potentially. So we'll see how that all works out. But that's my glass half full look at it is okay. If he's now on the shelf and we're basically getting him back for a stretch run, that's ideal because now fully healthy Matt Milano comes in at playoff time. People are not really sure what this defense looks like with Milano as a part of it because he hasn't played in 25 plus games or whatever it will be when he comes back. That's only going to help the Bills in my mind. But now they have to get there because they're going to, their offense may struggle at times and they may rely on the defense at times to get them to the playoffs. And now the defense may be, or I will just say it is, less reliable without a Matt Milano on it. Just the fact of the matter. Not to say it can't be successful. It's just not as good. Can't be as good when your all-pro linebacker isn't there. Now, they were still successful last year, and they still will be successful this year, but just a matter of the ceiling of that defense, what it can accomplish is going to be a little bit less, in my opinion, without Milano. It's not to say this team's not going to have success, but as a unit, obviously better with him. They're going to figure out how to go forward and have success without him. And other than that, it's just like we said, next man up, keep going and hope for the best. Kind of hoping for the best. And Dorian Williams obviously has given us shades at times. Deion Jones has some skills. Nick Morrow, we'll see if he can. He hasn't really been on the field much at all in this preseason, so we'll see where he can fit in. Does he fit into that, or is he more the backup to Bernard in that case? And we know Balen Spector has been handling that role as well. What does Balen Spector offer for an option there? I'm not too sure yet. That's one of the things we're going to be hoping to see in this week, even as soon as this week, to kind of see, okay, who gets that rep next to Bernard? Is it one person, multiple people? And the other thing is they have had a banged up linebacker core already, it seems, in the preseason, which is, like you mentioned, concerning given that this was kind of the strength of the team on paper going into July or August. And now it's less than that. Before we go too much further, I did fail to mention the sponsors, so let me just take a chance right now. Buffalo Belia Sports and More on Facebook. Please go check out that site. They have some mystery boxes up right now. $229 gets you one of 27 mystery boxes. Great memorabilia in those mystery boxes. And then Monster Energy, the official partner of Built-In Buffalo. Greatly appreciate their support this year. And yeah, guys, I mean, what do you think as far as what, I said a lot there. You guys obviously made your points as well. Is there anything else you want to touch on with the linebacking core, the individual guys? Any talk about, Balen Spector, Deion Jones, and what the fit might be? Or is it simply Dorian Williams in your mind right away?
So we didn't mention, but Spector pulled his calf this week too, so he's out for at least a week. So he's not going to get any reps this week and didn't get a lot of practice. They just want to address something John said real quick about Nick Morrow. So Nick Morrow in his whole career has only missed like 4 games. So he generally is healthy. I know he's dealing with a groin thing right now, but like he's a vet who can go on the field and should be plug and play, not necessarily at the same level as Matt Milano, because, let's face it, maybe only 2 guys are, Roquan Smith and Fred Warner, and then Matt Milano. So I'm hoping that Nick Morrow can get healthy by the end of camp or end of preseason and get himself out there, because I think he is the most consistent guy we have. Dorian Williams, I do think, kind of gets the first shot at it just because he was in the system last year. But last year in coverage, he looked a little shaky. He's solid against the run. He has solid football instincts, but we'll see. Like when he was out there last year, in the playoffs, when we had that whole linebacker debacle and we were pulling guys away from their Disney World vacations, he didn't look great to me. Who knows? He's had a whole offseason, and Terrell Bernard did the exact same thing last season. He was a 3rd-round pick that didn't play at all, and then he came in and became maybe the best player on that defense last season. So hopefully Dorian Williams can step up, but if not, I'm confident in Nick Morrow stepping in there as well. Deion Jones, I don't know. He hasn't really looked that good the past couple seasons. He's been kind of shaky. He was great in Atlanta, and then he kind of fell off a cliff. So I don't think that the Bills are thinking of him to be a starting every down linebacker, because he hasn't done that in 3 years now. So yeah, I think it's between Nick Morrow if he's healthy, and then Dorian Williams is probably the starter there right now. And then, when Morrow comes back, because he does his weak side experience, so he played when he was in Chicago, those two will kind of battle it out.
Yeah, I think it's I think Dorian, I agree with Scott there. I think he gets the first shot, just also when you look at it with how they kind of handled Bernard, right? Bernard, it wasn't, throw him right into the fire his first year, let him learn by mistakes, whatever it was. They let him kind of marinate in the system, let him learn. I know he was battling some injuries as well, but now it's kind of similar to all of a sudden now Bernard had to step up last year. Now all of a sudden Dorian Williams is going to have to step up. I don't think he'll obviously have the same impact as Bernard did last year. I mean, that'd be phenomenal if he does. If he does, that's great. But even if he can kind of be a guy that can make some plays here and there, just give up minimal against the pass, just be a guy that can be used in a lot of different ways, right? I mean, I love Dorian coming out of college. He was just a guy that flew across the football field. Scott did mention, though, that he struggled a little bit last year in coverage. We'll see if that kind of has progressed since last year, see if he maybe took a few things from Milano, from Nick Morrow, from just vets in the Bills linebacking corp right now. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who can take it the whole season. But I was going to ask this a little bit later, and we had it on here for a little bit later, but I think, it kind of fits right now, is with this injury, does this affect how Bean goes after the linebacker position? If they are struggling for the first 4 or 5 weeks, does it kind of make something change? If the Bills are still looking like, oh, we should be a playoff team, could go deep, do you think that this could be a position they look to kind of make a move with at the trade deadline or towards the trade deadline mid-season mark? I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. For me personally, I mean, I don't think linebacker-wise they would make a move, if anything. I don't think that changes too much, but I just wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were on maybe do the Bills, just Bean and company, look into making kind of a splash at linebacker since Milano's going to be out?
I think it's going to be a reactionary thing for me. If that's going to happen, I think it would have to be people falling on their face that we have in-house right now that already have, learned the scheme and been in the position. If you can't fill that with those folks, then it's going to be a reactionary move. I don't think it's something that is going to be sought out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe if we get to week 4, 5, 6 and another guy gets hurt and it's a train wreck and Terrell Bernard maybe isn't playing like he did last season, maybe. But yeah, I think it's kind of a wait and see. Like I do think linebacker is a very deep position for this team. So in theory, they should have guys who can step in, like we just mentioned a few of them. So hopefully they don't have to do that. But yeah, you just got to, I think, wait and see and see what it's looking like once we get to that point of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I do have some confidence in Sean McDermott and this defense and Bobby Babich in this defense to kind of pick up the slack at least for a little bit to give this team a chance to be in that contention once it gets to the time where, hey, is Milano going to be back? Once that talk kind of starts heating up in December, I think that Sean McDermott should be able to put this defense still in a position, though, to succeed. But just want to get your thoughts on that. Before we get to Scott's 1 minute, did you guys have anything else before we get into that? All right, then I think, Scott, it is your turn to take it over.
Sweet. What's up, everybody? Wanted to talk a little bit about the receiving room and an interesting interview I listened to with Mac Hollins on Chris Long's Green Light podcast. If anybody's listened to that, go check it out. Shout out, no free shout out, but Josh Allen and Mac Hollins were on it this weekend. And Josh gave a really good interview like he always does, gave some of his diet secrets if anybody wants to listen to that. But Matt Collins said something that I thought was really interesting. He said kind of one of the mottos that the receiving crew has this season is no block, no rock, meaning that if you're going to be selfish and you're not going to block in the run game or block in the screen game, which I know a lot with Joe Brady, you're just not going to get the ball. So I thought that was interesting given, some of the guys that they've had in the receiving room in the past couple of years, maybe blocking wasn't their favorite thing to do, just kind of how the whole mindset of the receiving room has shifted this year with everybody eats attitude. So kind of wanted to see what you guys thought about that and how you think that could have a positive impact on the receiving room, just because everybody seems so selfless and kind of for the team this year, which hopefully means good things to come.
No block, no rock. I love it. I saw Josh Allen's appearance on the Green Light there with Chris Long. I thought it was fantastic insight. So I did not see the Mac Hollins portion yet, but I'll definitely be searching for that. And I love that concept. I mean, just earn it. Everyone on this team is equal. Go out and earn everything that you get from here on out. And I think that's a really good motto to have.
Yeah, we've already seen, Sean McDermott and the guys talking about selflessness, this whole kind of camp and into the preseason here, and how much that's kind of been an emphasis maybe on compared to past years. So that's kind of just even more so of it, like, hey, you got to do even the little stuff if you're going to want to be a big part of this offense. And we saw the run game obviously struggle a little bit in the first preseason game. Obviously, we hope that can get better from the offensive line, but receivers can also help that out on certain run plays, hopefully when it comes to getting bigger runs in the second level and everything. So, I like the philosophy. I mean, Mac Hollins is slowly becoming one of those guys that you love that he's in your locker room. You love that he's on your team just because he seems like a great locker room guy. And this is just more proof of that. And we already knew that he was a pretty good blocker coming into Buffalo before this segment, before, camp and everything. So Matt Collins slowly becoming one of my favorite players.
Yeah, he also broke down where he will actually wear shoes, which was kind of funny. So anyway, we can take it forward because we got Buffalo Bills football again tomorrow, preseason game number 2. Not going to talk too much about preseason game number 1. To be honest, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It wasn't the most fun thing to watch. But tomorrow we got the starters playing again, a quarter and a half, they said, depending on the weather, because it might rain in Pittsburgh. But before we get into some game stuff, yesterday the Bills and the Steelers had a joint practice. So just wanted to hear what you guys think about that. Do you like them? Do you not like them? A bunch of guys got banged up, whether they were actually injured or just being pulled precautionary, is another thing. But what do you guys think about the joint practice? What are some things you got out of it? And do you like them in general?
I think it depends on the situation. For this team this year, I like it because as much competition as we can get these guys, being a little bit younger, being, some newer faces there, not having to go against the same guys that just went against for 3 weeks at Fisher, I think it helps. Get some new competition, guys that aren't joking around with you afterwards, guys that are looking to earn their jobs as well. Not to say that, everyone's looking to earn their jobs on the Bills as well, but I think, there's a certain respect and a certain level of tenacious play when you're going against your teammate versus, all right, this guy could potentially prevent me from feeding my family. I'm going to go out and, and that's always the fun nuance of a practice like that. So I think all in all, it went well. I think when you do it with, two head coaches that have control of their teams the way these two do, and you're able to control some situations, maybe there were some tense moments, but nothing got out of hand too much. And I think this year specifically, I was a big fan of how it all went down and that we got to do it with the Steelers.
Yeah, that last part that you just said there, Lance, was the part that I wanted to really touch on is it depends heavily on what team you're doing it with, right? You know with the Steelers that things might get chippy, they might go back and forth. I mean that's also part of the game of football. But when you have two guys like McDermott, like Mike Tomlin that go way back, that know each other, that are just well-respected coaches around the league, especially Mike Tomlin, who, I mean, we know how great he's been for the Pittsburgh for however many years he's been there. You know that he'll have his guys in line and say, hey, yeah, you can get chippy, you can go back and forth, but we're going to watch how far we go. I mean, you see some of these joint practices go into full all-out brawls. I would be very shocked if the Steelers or Bills ever got into one, just because of how the head coaches are. Mostly with Mike Tomlin being a guy that is a kind of a, he's obviously had his faults with some certain players in the past. But for the most part, he's had his guys in line. He's had a lot of guys that will step up even if they see something with a certain player that's kind of getting a little too chippy. They'll have leaders on the team that say, hey, it's just a joint practice, let's move on. But I think it's good to get live-ish reps, with other teams and getting them against not just the same guys for the first 4 weeks before you get into the regular season. So I like them, at least depending on the certain team, whichever team you do. I'll always love it when they do it with the Steelers, just because, again, him and McDermott go way back. So I'll always like them doing it with the Steelers. So don't mind them.
Yeah, I like it. Like you mentioned, McDermott and Mike Tomlin, they were teammates at William and Mary, so they know each other probably just about as well as any head coaching duo in the league. So there's like a mutual respect there that they're not going to do anything crazy. I think it was like a Chargers-Rams joint practice this week where like a Chargers player pushed a Rams like coach down like after a drill, and it led to a fight. So like, you're not going to have anything like that. Just the amount of respect that those guys have for each other. But yeah, I like it. And like you said, Lance, like this team's a lot different this year, and you can only get so much better just practicing against the same guys every day. Like the defense has to see different receivers to see different tendencies. The offense has to go against different looks. So yeah, I'm a fan. Competition breeds excellence. I know I've said that a couple times here. So like, I know a bunch of guys got banged up, which we'll talk about, but that's football, baby. Like I think they got more out of a real practice yesterday where you're actually doing some hitting and actually, maybe not as worried about hurting the guy on the other side because he's not your teammate, because that's what the games are like. Like if you practice without hitting when you go to the game and you get hit, you're going to get hurt. But if you practice tackling the right way, getting hit the right way, like all of those things, I think it prepares you better for the game than just going against, the same team every week. So kind of leading into what I was talking about, a bunch of guys got banged up yesterday. Dorian left practice. Bernard left practice at some point. Hamlin, I guess, had his leg wrapped, but said he's fine. Elam was on the trainers with oxygen. So what do you guys think of the state of the overall defense as far as injuries goes? It's already been kind of a secondary that's put together with, safety pins and duct tape with the safety position, but linebacker is slowly becoming that too. So are there any areas of concerns? And the starters are supposed to play a quarter and a half tomorrow. You rethinking that at all?
When it comes to, I think, the starters playing or not playing, you kind of alluded to it. You need these little reps. You need these guys to get used to the hitting, right? You can't just go into it and just all of a sudden it's week one and these guys haven't played in a live game in 3 weeks, right? 2 weeks, right? So as much as, these injuries are a little bit concerning, it is football, right? It's the NFL. These things happen. Players get banged up. You just hope that majority of them at this time of the year, throughout every part of the year, but mostly this time of the year, that they're minor injuries. They're small things that we're just going to take a precaution on. We're going to sit them out the rest of the practice, whatever it is. Just don't overdo it right now, but still be in those live reps, do as much as you can. But I guess I'm not super concerned when it comes to it, just because, again, these things happen every year. You see it happen every year. The only thing that kind of sucks when you're a Bills fan is seeing how the past few years, arguably the best player on the defense has gotten hurt, seriously hurt for the past 5 years at least. And it sucks again that seeing this year Milano get hurt. But again, you need these reps, you need these guys to get into it, or else you're going to have, lots of week 1, week 2, week 3 injuries with these guys getting into it full play in the regular season. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the preseason game this week. I think if you have more injuries happen this week, then you got to really rethink it going into the last preseason game. But right now, there's one less preseason game than there was years ago. You need to take advantage of each snap that you can get in live football games. So not too concerned, but if it starts to add up more in this weekend, then it might be a different story.
Yeah, one thing I've kind of said throughout the preseason about a lot of things is, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not concerned because it is preseason right now. These injuries weren't anything major that I'm aware of. This is an interesting comment, though, I wanted to bring up. Like, our offensive line started the same 5 guys all last year. So, like, yeah, there is some issues maybe, but it's more like bound to happen because our linebackers are the guys going 100 miles an hour at a guy, smashing into them all the time. So they're relied on to, be those heavy hitters, and same with some of the secondary. And by virtue of that, like, that contact just wears people down, and naturally, human bodies will get injured being put in that position. I don't think that the whole team is snake bitten. I think obviously you think about the linebacking crew and the playoffs and things like that, but I just think that physical brand that McDermott wants to play lends itself to these guys kind of putting themselves in position. Milano's injury was such a freak thing where he just unnecessarily ran at a pile of people and the pile just collapsed onto his leg, and it was after a play, the play had basically happened already and was being blown dead. And then he went in there to try to like hit people or whatever. I really don't know what he was doing. And he ends up, getting rolled up on there. So that's really shitty luck, I think, is what do you want to say? That's just really what it is. I don't think that necessarily the training staff has a huge issue. We've been really good with, a lot of different positions, but the linebacking crew, some of the secondary, those guys are asked to play a physical brand of football. Those guys are asked to do a lot of things that puts you in a position where injuries can happen. And that's just a matter of the fact, that's the fact of this defense and how they want to play, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the injuries our guys have been having the past couple seasons, it's not like they're like wear and tear injuries from like training issues. Like you mentioned, they're all like freak serious injuries that like Matt Milano hits a bag on Tuesday and like tears his bicep. Like that's nothing to do with like the training staff. Like that's just gonna happen. Like ACLs, Achilles, stuff like that. Like those are just going to happen based on the nature of the sport. And like you think about it, like every team is going through the same thing. Like every team has injuries in training camp. So the Ravens 2 years ago had J.K. Dobbins and Marcus Peters tear their ACLs on back-to-back plays in practice, and they just like stopped practice for the day. Like it just happens. It sucks, but unfortunately, football is a violent game. Like they say there's contact sports, and football is not even a contact sport. It's a collision sport. So like these injuries are going to happen, and it just kind of have to, hope that Bean puts together a deep enough team to survive it. Like nothing you can do about it, but next man up and keep it going. So to talk about a little bit about the game coming up tomorrow night, one area that I would like to see the Bills play better is the offensive line. They were bad on last Saturday against the Bears, and the Bears defensive line is okay, but I wouldn't say that they're like world beaters by any means. And they struggled to get more than like a yard a carry, and James Cook was getting touched in the backfield every play. Pass protection, they looked okay, but they could not get anything going in the run game. Could that be with some, new pieces there? McGovern moved over to center, David Edwards at guard, but the offensive line just has to play better. What did you guys think about their performance last week, and what are you looking for out of them tomorrow against the Steelers, who have a pretty dang good defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the offensive line, I mean, I'm not too concerned about them piecing it together, especially because if you look at last year, especially in the preseason, some people were talking about, is Deion Dawkins done? Is he starting to decline heavily? And, is Spencer Brown going to be able to step up? And then you got to the regular season, and Deion Dawkins had one of the best seasons of his career, if not the best season of his career. Spencer Brown proved he could be a reliable right tackle. So maybe it's just these guys getting used to things again. Like you said, Scott, new guys in new positions. McGovern moving to center. You have Edwards coming in to fill the guard spot. Is it just them kind of figuring things out? Are they new? Is it new with Joe Brady? Are they having different scheme looks when it comes to running the football? But I mean, it was the same story. I feel like last year. I mean, you were hearing it all the way throughout camp. I mean, saying those guys are getting beat, these guys are getting beat nonstop, and then you get to the regular season and the offensive line looks great. So who knows what it will be? Hopefully they do look at least better this week. I mean, you can't just be like, oh, throw it out the window and it's nothing. But at the end of the day, it is one preseason game. It's the opening preseason game against first team reps, right? And the Chicago's defensive line isn't exactly the worst in the NFL. I mean, it's a pretty solid defensive line over there. So as much as it sucked to kind of see and see the stats and see what happened with this offensive line against the Bears, against the Steelers, it's another good test before you get to the regular season. Hopefully they can start to piece it together there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not buying too much stock in what the O-line did, especially week one. Bears run defense, it was really good last year too. And, that probably plays a role. They did get a chance to play a preseason game already and get some of their first game jitters out. So, it was only 6-3 at half. So, I mean, the starters, the main guys, that are on this roster played okay. It's just really, when we got into the depth there, towards the end of the game, the game really got away. So, I don't think the offensive line played well by any means. I did like how Cedric Van Granger was kind of looking for work out there. He definitely, and I apologize, I really wanted to have a clip, and going forward, you guys can expect kind of some more clips from me, and we'll kind of go through some. I'm excited to get Scott's knowledge with the way he does a lot of flag football right now, but he just has a lot of stuff that I'd be interested to see during the season too when we get some film out there. And it looks like NFL Plus had made it easier for us to get these things now, so I'm excited for that. But Van Granger, didn't have anyone to block, and he came over and did a combo with the guard and just helped finish a guy. So I just thought that was really good. He had other plays where he was doubling and really just always looking for someone to hit out there. And I think that's a really good sign for the rookie. And Alec Anderson did struggle. So we'll see how that plays out in a sort of battle for the backup role at backup center, backup interior line, and whatnot. But they definitely need to be better. I mean, block the guy in front of you, right? I mean, that's pretty simple football there. I'd like to see a little bit more inspiration, a little bit more charge out of the front line, and let our backs gain more than 36 yards or 39 yards on 16 carries, whatever it was. Just inexcusable. Obviously, McDermott wasn't happy after the game, and by all means had every right to be. But I hope really what I looked for in the first game and what I'll be looking for again is, are we getting exchanges well? McGovern said something after the game about how like the Bears alignment, would have had them checking out of plays in the regular season, and that they just weren't doing that in this game. So they were kind of running in to, misaligned fronts, scenarios where typically they know the defense has the upper hand, but they're not going to do anything to change it because they're not going to show anything. So that when he said that, it made a lot of sense of like, okay, well, they're running into, a stacked box basically, or they're running into an alignment on defense where this play doesn't have a great chance of success, but they're running what they call because they're not going to show anything in preseason at the same rate. So I'm a little bit indifferent at this point on what took place the first week and what we need to see. It's really getting rid of those pre-snap penalties, getting aligned, getting the snaps down. Yes, I would like you to block the guy in front of you a little bit better and give these guys room to run. But overall, it's really just the, getting in the rhythm of a game, get your alignment, get rid of penalties, and get ready to function.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to worry about yet. Like you said, like, would it have been nice for them to block a little better and maybe gain more than like 1 yard a carry, which they did with the starters? Yeah, of course. But also, you got to remember it's preseason. Like, the only play that they ran, other than just like halfback dive, the only play that they ran on Saturday that they will probably run in the regular season was that tunnel screen to Curtis Samuel, which they executed perfectly. And it was so cool to see because Joe Brady loves those plays. And last year they just didn't work. So awesome to have a guy like Curtis Samuel who they can get that to. But other than that, it was all super basic, very vanilla. Don't want to put anything on film. And then I don't know if you all watched Hard Knocks this past week. The Bears treated this like it was a real game. They said they game planned. They like put stuff in. They put stuff in specifically to work against the Bills, which makes sense because they have Caleb Williams and they need to get him as comfortable as possible. Where Josh Allen said they didn't even talk about anything to do with the Bears the week leading up to it. It was just all about getting themselves ready for the regular season. So yeah, I don't think there's anything to worry about yet. The people who stress out over preseason football just need to find something else to stress out about. It's because it doesn't matter. We all remember last season, the Steelers destroyed the Bills in the preseason game. And guess what? Kenny Pickett did not do that in the regular season. So yeah, would have been cool to see them, block a little better, but yeah, no reason to worry just yet. But on a brighter side, Khalil Shakir played pretty well on Saturday, had a couple nice catches. Dalton Kincaid looked pretty good out there too. I was reading that they dominated the joint practice yesterday against the Steelers. And like we mentioned, the Steelers defense is one of the better defenses in the league. So what are you guys looking for out of Kincaid and Shakir? I think everybody kind of knows the basic, this offense will kind of go as they go as probably the top two pass catchers. But like, what are you guys looking to see this week and then kind of leading them into the regular season to, make you think that they really can have the kind of seasons that we know they can?
Yeah, I loved that, not even the catch from Shakir, but obviously the run afterwards where he just straight up beat that guy, and people don't respect his speed or don't talk about his speed all that much. So I think for Shakir, I'm very excited about Shakir. I'm trying not to just go to the level that I went with Von Miller last offseason for any player anymore, because I feel like I was like pounding my chest, pounding the table. Von's gonna be back. He's gonna be great, and couldn't have been more false. So Shakir, I think, has the potential to really, really be good with this team in this system, and I'm excited about that kid. And then Kincaid, obviously, has continued to show why we're excited and expecting him to be the leading target getter on this team. And that kid just has to score more touchdowns this year, and I think he's going to be super good. Even if the stat line, receptions and targets and all that stays similar to what it was last year, which I think it's going to go up, but really the thing that I want to see go up is some touchdowns. And I think in the joint practice, they went 3 for 4 on their initial goal line sequence there with the starter. So that's encouraging to that point.
Yeah. Before I talk about Kincaid and Shakir, I do just want to mention my house was in Hard Knocks this past week. So did see myself. No, I'm just joking. Didn't see myself, but I saw my house there up there. But when it comes to Shakir and Kincaid, I mean, Shakir, to kind of go off of what you said, Lance, it's also just his shiftiness, his ability to just kind of squeeze in there, right? He's a smaller guy. You saw it on the play last year where he somehow broke the tackle and somehow found his way into the end zone. It's just he finds a way, and I think you'll see that more this year. Even he can take some tips from a guy like Curtis Samuel.
Who was that against anyway?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually blanking on
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, was that? I was say that was Pittsburgh. So yeah, I mean, you'll see that I think a little bit more this year than Kincaid. I just think, you're seeing the NFL, especially over the past few years, kind of really emphasize tight ends on top tier offenses, right? You've seen Kincaid or Kittle, you've seen Kelsey, you've seen Mark Andrews, Hawkinson, all those guys, Laporta, even last year with Detroit, not exactly have a huge season, but just be involved and be somebody that the defense really has to worry about. So I think Kincaid is going to he's going to have to step up, and I think he is going to step up in that role. I think he's going to be that guy that they can look to in short yardage situations. Just even on first down, get 4 or 5 yards for the Bills just to kind of get them moving, right? I think he'll be a guy that they can look at, say he'll catch the ball if it's thrown his way and it's catchable more times than not. Majority of the time he's going to come down with the football. And last year I don't think you really saw him super involved in the game plan, especially with Dorsey, where I'm thinking Joe Brady this year is going to really have him heavily involved in this offense, getting 6, 7, 8 targets a game and really getting those receptions at least up there. Touchdowns, I'm not so sure if his touchdowns will take a huge jump. Yards might take a slight jump, but I think the receptions is where you'll see that massive jump for him, just even because of just the targets he'll get. So I'm really excited to see Kincaid more than really anybody in this offense this year, because last year we knew the hype was around him. I think people had some lofty expectations for him going into last year. But this year, I think he really needs to take that step, and I think he will take that step to be really Josh's kind of safety valve and that go-to guy when he needs just a couple yards and needs somebody to rely on. So I'm really excited for Kincaid, especially hopefully with Joe Brady kind of putting him in the game plan a little bit more.
Yeah, and on the Shakir front, real quick, Scott, is like not only he have that great, balance and cut back to score that touchdown, but also that play where Allen's scrambling to his left and throws the dart over the pylon. I raved about this play probably 1,000 times now with you guys, but like just having seen that live, I was just so impressed. And Shakir knew where to be and really probably earned a ton of trust from Josh, on plays like that where he can go back and not even necessarily be open, but Allen throws it to a spot where it's Shakir or nobody, and Shakir comes down with a catch for the touchdown. That's just a special play.
Yeah, I say take Kincaid and Shakir over props early in the season. Because one, I think they're going to have good years, but also they're the only two guys in this offense Josh Allen is throwing the ball to. Even on Saturday in the preseason, it was third down or like second and long and they needed some yards. He went to Shakir, and that's probably going to happen in the beginning of the season. Like when he needs a throw, he's going to go to the guys he's comfortable with. And that's what the guys he's been throwing to for the past season in Kincaid and 2 seasons in Shakir. So I look for them to get off to a hot start just because they're the only returners. But yeah, something I know Matt Collins said on that Green Light podcast, and I know take it with a grain of salt. It's his teammate. What else is he going to say? But he raved about Khalil Shakir, just like how good he is in practice. Matt Collins has been on a lot of different teams, played with a lot of really good receivers. And he said Khalil Shakir was like right up there with those guys he's been playing with. So really excited to see what he can do now in a bigger role, especially with last year in the second half of the season. He had more yards than Stephon Diggs. And I think he had something like 40 or 50 less targets. So he took advantage of the ones that he got, and he should be getting a lot more targets this season. So look for those numbers to go up. So let's talk about the actual game a little bit. We got the Bills starters for a quarter and a half-ish, as long as it doesn't rain and ruin everybody's fun. Then we got the Steelers starters as well. We got Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, whatever you want to call him. Good thing it's a home game. He won't bother his teammates doing high knees on the plane. So what are you guys excited to see this weekend? Who's a guy you're watching to try to make a run or, try to make the team? And Aaron Judge just hit another home run. He is on a different level. And I'm just going to say it because go Yankees. But football, what are you guys looking for tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we said earlier, with starters playing, you'll be on edge a little bit, just hoping that each play everybody gets up and everybody's fine. But it's gonna be nice to see against also a team again that has high quality players, that has a good front four with Pittsburgh and just solid talent on the other side. But out of the guys that I'm looking really at, Ray Davis, I want to see again this week. I want to see if he can kind of put together a full game. I saw John, I believe, was talking about how he had a pretty good day against the Steelers in the joint practice. So he's a guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Keon Coleman, I would love to see kind of just again get some more targets, see what he can do there. Just really offensively, those are the two guys that I think I'm heavily looking at. And then on the defensive side, I'm really looking to see if Dwayne Carter can make some plays this weekend against a team that hopefully he should be able to make at least a few plays and maybe the run game. Not so much looking so much against the pass for him, but Dwayne Carter's a guy that I'm really going to be looking at. I've been raving about him all off season, and with DaQuan Jones, who knows what will go on with him and his health throughout the season. We saw him last year battling injuries. We've seen him this year already battling some injuries. He's not getting any younger, so he's a guy that might have to step up this year if DaQuan Jones does end up going down with injury again, or just in general, he might just be a guy that's heavily rotated in that defensive line. So Dwayne Carter, he's going to be one of the guys that I'm really, really interested in seeing against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the quarter and a half's interesting, I think, because okay, we're not going to take Josh out right at the end of the first quarter this time. If he goes a second series, or if they play maybe 3 series somehow, if they score quick or something, we're not going to take him out in the middle. I see that as we're not going to take him out in the middle of a series, and again, pending weather, obviously. But I think that's more so the gist is okay, it's not a hard fast one quarter. It's going to be give Josh whatever 2 or 3 series. I don't see it more than 3 series for him. Either way, I wouldn't see what the purpose of that would be necessarily. Whether they're doing really well or whether they're struggling. I guess if they're struggling and there's some need there, McDermott's going to have the most trust in putting him out there. But in this game, putting him out there against the Steelers and against Tomlin's crew because of the relationship and everything we've talked about. But I'm hoping the weather does not spoil our fun. That's for sure. And it's because really it's going to really muddy up how we look at the defensive and offensive line, which is going to be my focus once again this week. I think that as you get some adverse weather, those performances are going to be given more grace and taken with even more of a grain of salt, because it's all right, I know the guys have to perform regardless of conditions, but how much can you really expect a guy to do without being able to get solid footing or whatnot? And obviously football, you're going to have to do that regardless in the regular season, but in the preseason, just a different dynamic for me. So I hope, like Scott said, the weather's not going to be a party pooper, but I'm excited to see the defensive line as a whole, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute for my segment. And then more so, again, these depth pieces. What does the second unit offensive line look like, and those kind of things? And are we able to still get push up front as well with the ones and the second unit? What's the push up front look like? Can our running backs get a little bit of room? Are they going to have more than 50 yards rushing on the day, which I would expect, but or hope for? But that's really, getting the preseason passing game is not going to be spectacular. They're not going to show a lot of concepts. They ran some levels and some things like that last week, it seemed, but we'll see kind of its basic, route schemes. I think this week with what happened last week, I really just want to see them be able to run the ball and be a little more effective on that. And it's not going to be any special run schemes by any means. It's going to be, more vanilla stuff, but at least just execute what you're called out there.
Yeah, like you said, I would like to see a little more out of the O-line in the run game this week, especially because the Steelers' defensive line and defense as a whole is really good. So for a new center combination, to a new guy calling kind of what he sees out there, Mitch Morse, Josh Allen joked that he was the offense's dad last season, just because they got to the line and Mitch Morse called out what they were in. I like what you said about McGovern, saying we saw that they were in something different, but we didn't adjust. I wouldn't mind seeing him make some minor adjustments this week, just because in the regular season, he's going to have to be the guy that does that, kind of calling out the protection on the offensive line, saying who the Mike is, whoever. They're always trying to find this guy named Mike, but one day they'll find him. But yeah, just trying to see a little bit of stuff from him, because in the regular season, he's going to have to be that guy. I also wouldn't hate a little bit of rain, maybe a little bit, so that the starters still play, not enough or makes it sloppy, because he hasn't played a lot of center recently, and that exchange gets a lot different when everything is wet. And they're probably not going to practice in the rain because they have a domed practice facility, and why would they? But I guarantee you we play a game this year in the rain. So getting a little bit, some reps in some inclement weather isn't necessarily a bad thing. And another thing I'm looking forward to see is the special teams. Lance last week anointed Sam Martin the MVP after his first punt, and I think he took it away by the end of the first quarter. So looking to see, because the special teams guys are probably guys who are going to be in those roles in real games, because they're not guys who are starters most of the time. So seeing how that looks. Kickoff. Kyler Bass just kicked it out of the end zone. Like, you can't do that in the game, because we don't want to give him the ball at the 30. Would like to see how they're going to cover it. Like, I was all fired up for the first new kickoff, then he kicked it out of the back of the end zone. It's like, did he just forget that you can't do that anymore? And then, the returners weren't great. KJ Hamler muffed one. They didn't really get very good field position, and they had a lot of attempts at it with how many points they gave up. So excited to just see special teams as a whole and how that unit's going to operate, because it's going to matter a lot more this season. You guys got anything else on preseason week 2 before we throw it to the next 1 minute by Lance? Cool. Take it away,
Awesome.
Lance.
All right. What I wanted to give my take on, and then get Ben and Scott in on it, and then you guys as well. Let me know what you think for pass rush this year. We have a front four that has so far, and it's early, not been able to get a 4-man pass rush. And because when the edges got their rush, the interior didn't hold up. When the interior got their rush, the edges didn't hold up, and people were able to escape. So the pass rush for me early on this season is going to be more based on scheme. They're going to scheme guys with blitzes and things to get pressure. They're going to scheme pressure, but come playoff time, that becomes much more difficult, and we're going to need a front four that can provide a consistent pass rush. I think by the end of the year, we can get there. We have the guys that are capable. But I just want to get your thoughts on, how do you think the Bills are going to get their pressure? Do you think that they can be successful early in the season with the front four they have, or do you think it's going to take some time and that it's going to be a scheme to get pressure going, until maybe later in the season when these guys maybe gel a little bit and get a little more feng shui?
I hope the pressure doesn't come from scheme. Sorry, man, I cut you off there. I hope they can get it with the front four, because to beat guys like Mahomes, guys like Joe Burrow, you have to get home with 4 and then cover with 7. Like that really is the only way to do it. Like these guys, and like Josh Allen too, like if you blitz elite quarterbacks, they're going to pick you apart, because you're going to be covering their 5 with 5. And someone's going to get open and they're going to make a guy miss. So yeah, they have to get pressure with 4. Hopefully Von Miller looks as good as everybody has been saying that he does. That would be huge. Look for Greg Rousseau to take a step forward as a pass rusher. We know what he does against the run. And then DaQuan Jones being healthy this season, I think is a big deal, because that dude just eats blocks. And Ed Oliver is our best pass rusher from the interior. And if DaQuan Jones is taking up 2 guys and Ed Oliver can work one-on-one, which he couldn't do very much last year without DaQuan, like he's going to get pressure. So, yeah, I think that they need to get pressure with 4, or else they're just not going to be able to get over the hump like years past, because, if you blitz these guys, they're going to pick you apart.
Yeah, I agree there too, especially with now Matt Milano being out. You really just need the front four to really step up. You need them to be what maybe we thought they would be after the first 3 weeks last year, where we said, hey, they're getting pressure, they're doing, they're getting to the quarterback, they're getting in the backfield. And yeah, you do need a guy like Von Miller to step up. And, I do see some comments saying he's a waste of money. I mean, I get it, but he also had 8 sacks in 9.5 games before his injury in 2022. Last year, yes, it was rough, but even he said, he probably shouldn't have played. He probably shouldn't have. And he was evident on the field that he was not the same guy that he was. hopefully, like Scott said, he can build off of what they're talking about with him this training camp and this offseason, and how he's kind of returning a little bit to that old Von Miller. And no, he's not going to be, a guy that gets 18 and a half sacks like he did in 2012. If he does, that'd be unbelievable. But he will be a guy that hopefully can be that third down pass rusher that you can put out there and, give you quality pass rush snaps. And even if he doesn't necessarily, he's still at this point, he is still is Von Miller and can take some pressure off of other guys because just his name. And teams might look at him and say, hey, we know him. We know he can get in the backfield and get after the quarterback. We're going to have to pay some more attention to him, and hopefully it can open up some things for other guys. But, I think this front four should be able to get some good pressure. Ed Oliver had a phenomenal season last year. Hopefully he can if he can build on that even just a little bit more, that would be phenomenal. If he can stay healthy, who knows what Javon Solomon can do if they do give him a shot in that rotation just a little bit. But, you have a lot of guys in this team that know how to get it after the quarterback. A lot of it, honestly, also had to do with finishing the plays. You saw A.J. Epinesa fail to bring the quarterback down a few times last season. You saw Greg Rousseau just barely missing the quarterback before they get it off. They'll have to get there a little bit sooner, and they'll have to finish off plays. So I think that we'll see a little bit of a different D-line this year. You're not just going to bank on, hey, can Leonard Floyd get after the quarterback? It's now going to be a committee, and it's going to be something that hopefully can help this linebacking corp and the secondary kind of just succeed this year. If you're going to bank on blitzing, you're going to be in trouble. But you do know that Sean McDermott will still have some beautifully drawn up blitzes for this defense this year.
Yeah, I think Von Miller's deal, just to jump in on a little of the conversation, the things, I don't want to sit here typing while I'm on the show when I could just talk. So I think that, Von Miller's presence in the locker room, his ability to teach some of these young guys and be a presence with the defensive line is a valuable thing too, that you're not really accounting for. Yeah, the money is a lot, but he's also taken and given some of that back to the Bills. And I think the Bills are much better with him, even given the injury, than without, because of things like veteran presence and those type of things. So I guess for me, being a big fan of Von Miller, which I'm sure everyone is as well, but he was just absolutely ripping people before the injury. And if that pace continued, he would have maybe been Defensive Player of the Year that year. And he got hurt and then everything changed. But he was just incredible. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to return necessarily to that high a level, but I think he can still be effective. It's weird to me in training camp, they're having him drop back in pass coverage at times and stuff. I'm interested to see where that comes. And that's where the scheme thing kind of triggered, because, will they drop him and send a Bernard? And that worries me a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know if I want Von Miller out there in a zone coverage or whatnot, but I think he has some ability to maybe be effective there if they need to, run some of these. Look, they ran a lot of what I call an amoeba front at times last year, so that you don't know where the pressure is going to come from. And that's more when I'm talking about scheming things. That's really the big thing with this defense, is you can do that because of the versatility of all these players. You have Smoot now in here who can rush from inside and outside, and Greg Rousseau can do that. So it really comes from a point of, okay, they're going to put a lot of pieces on the field, and you're not really sure which one is coming or not. And interesting to see Von so far in the preseason dropping back in coverage at times, and just thought it was notable and a little bit odd that that was the case.
I do, before Scott, you go here real quick, I do just want to also touch on kind of just talking about the idea of the contract being maybe a waste or anything. Do you say that, if you have the idea that Von's contract was a waste, you can say the same thing about Matt Milano, right? You can say the same thing about Trey White. You can say that about so many guys that have gone down with injuries. This happens. It sucks that it happens. And even so, Von Miller, before the injury, like we said, was putting up numbers. He was doing great. And again, I think when it comes to the dead cap after 3 years, it's not, I think, as high as everybody thinks it is. And it's not as dangerous when it comes to the cap as everybody thinks it is. So it's kind of just all, I get it. I get both sides. That's the thing, is I think everybody gets both sides, and it sucks that it happened this way. But again, hopefully this year, with it being incentives based, I forgot, I'm blanking on who set it up there. I believe it might have been Joey. Joey talked about how he's incentive based for Von this year. Maybe that makes him play better. And then maybe they can get out of him after this year, after giving him this incentive base this year. So it's going to be a little bit back and forth. At the end of the day, though, Von Miller needs to show up and play. And he needs to be able to be better than last year, that's for sure. Because last year, definitely, I can agree with everybody on that one, that it was not pretty seeing Von Miller on the football field last year.
Yeah, and something you have to remember, when they signed Von Miller, they were going all in. That was when they came 13 seconds away from beating the Chiefs and probably winning the Super Bowl that season. Like, I don't think Brandon Beane cared that a few years down the road where we are now, like, they're going to be in a bad cap situation. Like, they went all in, and guess what? If they won the Super Bowl in 2022, they don't have a bunch of injuries and all the freak things that happens, no one would be saying anything about the contract. We would just be looking at our Super Bowl rings. So they went all in, and it didn't work. And they knew that, and that was why they made the moves they made this past offseason, getting rid of Diggs and moving on from Morse, and like kind of taking like Josh Allen window 2.0 starting this season. So yeah, like, I'm fine with the contract, because the only way they were going to get Von Miller is if they gave him a long deal like they did. And I think we all knew that at the end of it, it wasn't going to be the prettiest. Hopefully this season, coming off the injury, it is. It's like baseball contracts. You sign guys to a 13-year deal, like Giancarlo Stanton jogging around for the Yankees right now. Like, it's not going to be great at the end, but the value he provides in the beginning is worth that he doesn't provide at the end. And unfortunately, he just got hurt. Like, nothing you can do about it. Like, that's showbiz. So, they're rebuilding now, and hopefully he can bounce back a little bit. And like, if people say it was a 6-year deal, it was a 3-year deal. The dead cap was not that much after year 3. I think it's different now after they renegotiated. But yeah, like, it's something you can look back on and say, is it something they should or shouldn't have done? And who knows? But at the time, it was something that they thought was going to help put the team over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, it's hindsight 2020. I see a lot of people talking about it in the comments as well when it comes to contracts, when it comes to just moves made by Brandon Beane, and hopefully this year it can get a little bit better. But let's move on a little bit to just the last little bit we have here. Not too much left that we really had to talk about. We already talked about the game a little bit, but we're talking about the roster, and we talked about a little bit about the linebacking corp now that Matt Milano's hurt, but we haven't talked about how Chase Claypool is now gone because of an injury settlement. He's now able to go play elsewhere if he does choose to. So yeah, I mean, it's when it comes to receivers here, we're going to talk about this comment here first. He says, with respect to wide receivers, is there any chance Demir Bird will make the 53-man roster? Too early to tell. I'm just going to simply say this. I'll then go right over to you guys. I think it's going to be real tough for him to make this roster. Also, just with other guys having stepped up so far. I mean, you already have KJ Hamler in the talk with kick returning. You have Shavers, who has been the talk of kind of the receivers this whole not free agency, the whole off season into training camp here. So it's going to be tough for him, I think. He's going to really have to have a really, really good 2 last preseason games here. But that's pretty much all I have when it comes to at least Demir Bird there. So what do you think? We'll start with you, Scott.
No. Maybe like if he like plays out of his mind, but no, like he hasn't really played that much in the NFL in the past couple seasons. He had one okay year with the Patriots when they had nobody else. Like, he's fast and he's returned some kicks in his career, but no, like, he's just a camp body, like someone to throw the ball to. And who knows, maybe he shocks the world and then I'll eat my words, but no.
Yeah, not someone I'm looking forward to making this roster by any means either, given the people we have. I agree, a body that comes in to practice and help, develop the third team and things like that. So is there a chance? There's a small chance for sure. Like Scott mentioned, if he catches everything thrown to him and somehow can gain the trust, and I would say probably that return role could be maybe his ticket if there's anything. But I hope, I'm hoping still that KJ Hamler can take that role. I think he could be, a good option to have as a 6 wide receiver and a returner, but, have to see better security from him if that's going to happen, and just haven't seen it yet. And that's really the concern, I guess, for everyone involved, is that, nobody's taken that role. So they're going to keep bringing guys in to try it and see what happens. But I think Hamler's still probably the best option there. And if not him, I really like the potential for Andy Isabella to take that role if they want him to be a kick returner and a 6 wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of does, though, bring into our next topic here that we were going to talk about, which was one, Corey Davis. He did get a workout, so another receiver coming in to work out. And just on top of that, I want to get your thoughts, one, on Corey Davis, and then two, on we had a good question here from Joey again, or not really a question, just kind of a statement here, saying we will find out if receiver by committee is working. That's also, we've talked about all off season. It is going to be wide receiver by committee. You're not going to see the same 2-3 guys out there every time. You're not going to see heavily Diggs. You're not going to see heavily Davis this year. It is going to be a little bit of everything. Maybe you'll see like more of Shakir and more of, Curtis Samuel, but you'll still see these 4th, 5th, 6th guys out there a good amount. So one, I just want to ask you guys about Corey Davis. Do you think he has any shot of kind of getting a shot with the Bills here? Do you think it means anything? And then two, do you think the wide receiver by committee will work this year? What concerns do you have with it? Or do you think it will kind of run smoothly with Josh?
I don't.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Lance.
Sorry. Go. You go.
I don't think Corey Davis has a shot. I think if he did, they would have signed him by now. He wasn't that great his past couple seasons with the Jets. He was hurt, and I understand they were retiring to come back. Guys will do literally anything to not play for the Jets. But yeah, no, I don't. I think they would have signed him by now. And then what was the second part of your question, Ben? I'm sorry, I was too animated about my no to Corey Davis.
Do you have any worries or concerns about the wide receiver by committee? Do you think it will work?
I think it will work. I've said that kind of the whole offseason. I also I don't necessarily know if it's I think a lot of teams say it's running back by committee or it's wide receiver by committee when they don't have any good players. I think the Bills have very good players. I think that Dalton Kincaid can be a top 5 tight end in the league this season. And as the Chiefs have shown, you can win Super Bowls when your best receiver is a tight end. I think that Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel are really, really good players, and they could be number ones on lesser offenses. So I think that it will, just because that the guys they have in there are quality football players, and Josh Allen makes everybody better around him. No receiver other than someone who is at the end of their career has come to Buffalo and done worse. John Brown had the best season of his career with a young Josh Allen. Cole Beasley was an all-pro with a young Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs was a solid receiver when he came to Buffalo. He became an all-pro, a perennial all-pro, top 3 guy in the league. Emmanuel Sanders had a good season when he was 47 years old. Guys come and play better with Josh Allen. I think Curtis Samuel is going to do that this year. He had Sam Darnold throwing in the ball, and what was the guy from North Carolina who was the quarterback for the Commanders last year? Sam Howell throwing him the ball. He has a bona fide all-time great quarterback throwing him the ball this season. I think it will work because I think the guys are good, and I think Josh Allen's just going to elevate everybody.
Yeah, and the ability for Allen to now just relax and read the game, know where he needs to go based upon what the defense is telling him and not what he's hearing in his ear, I think will go a long way. I'm not saying that, it's Stephon Diggs' fault that Allen made any mistake or anything along those lines. I just think that the way the synergy was, the way that the whole vibe was such that I'm the guy, get me the ball, and if you don't, you're going to hear about it. And I think that just causes anxiety for Allen, and may impact him in some ways. So I'm suggesting that with this committee of wide receivers that we can just read the defense, react to what we're seeing, and make the plays with much more reaction and less thought of, okay, well, I have to get this to someone. So that's my thought on this wide receiver by committee. I think we still have good players to get the ball to. I still think that Shakir and Samuel and Coleman and Hollins even are good enough to beat teams. And so it's not that just some, four random scrubs wide receivers are out there. I think that these are legit NFL receivers that are going to be able to make legitimate plays. I think Shakir showed that in his time last year. I think that Samuel has shown that when he was healthy at times. I think obviously we have Kincaid that's there. And then Coleman showing that if he can win off the line of scrimmage, he seems to be very capable of winning routes in this league. Just a matter of what he can do off the line of scrimmage at this point. And then, like I said a couple of episodes ago, Mac Hollins beats Christian Benford, who has been very solid on an out route in practice, and lets Benford know about it. And Benford got so heated at Hollins that he ends up throwing the football at his backside. And I thought that was just so telling. It gives Mac Hollins just another level of where he can help this team. I don't think it's going to be just as special teamer and, rah-rah guy. I think he's going to actually be able to catch a couple footballs.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the wide receiver by committee, I mean, I don't think it's not going to be Josh Allen's best season ever. I mean, it could be, but it's not going to be his worst ever either. It's going to be one of those seasons where I think he'll learn a lot about himself and he'll learn a lot about how he wants to play. And it's not going to be about how one or, like Lance said, how one or two guys want to play. It's how everybody wants to play. So it might get off to a little bit of a rough start. It might be there'll be those bumps and bruises, but I think by the end of the season they'll say, okay, this works. This works for Josh. This works for Joe Brady. This works for this team in general. And you have a good mix of young guys and a good mix of older guys in this wide receiver room. So I think it just overall, this wide receiver room, I think, will come together and will end up being very solid. Could end up being maybe an MVP season, also just due to the fact that when you're looking at it, even if it isn't Josh's best season, you can look at it and say, well, even if it's his second or third best season, and without a guy like Diggs, without a guy like Davis there, with brand new type of weapons, it could end up being an MVP season for him if he can put that together with this crew. And I think he can. I mean, I think, you have Curtis Samuel, who I know, Scott, you've been raving about him all offseason, and rightfully so, because again, like you said, he hasn't had the best quarterbacks in the league. You have, an offense that's coming back with an offensive line that looked like they could run the ball down your throat if you needed it and take some pressure off of Josh there. You have now Kincaid going into the second season. You have Knox coming back, I think, a little bit healthier, so he's not going to have to play through injuries, and he can be more of a focal point as well. So overall, I'm excited to see the wide receiver by committee. Corey Davis, yeah, I do agree with Scott. I'm going to keep it simple on that. I don't think there's a shot he really gets a chance here. I think that workout was his chance, and I don't think they'll really go much farther than that. So yeah, wide receivers, I think it's pretty much set that they'll go with the committee, and I'm excited to see it. So before we move on to the next question, did anybody have anything left about receivers?
I just have one thing about MVS. Like, I think people are acting like he's going to be like a big time target, like a number 1, 2, or 3 receiver for the Bills. Like, the dude had 20 catches last season. Like, he's going to be the 5th or maybe even the 6th guy on the depth chart, but he does something that like no one else on this Bills roster can do consistently at the NFL level, and that's run fast and run straight. Like, a lot of our other guys are fast, but they're the shifty guys. Like, MVS is 6'4", runs a 4.3, can stretch the field vertically. The Bills don't have anybody else who's that prototype of a receiver. Like, I think you need MVS, if nothing else, just to run guys off. Because if he runs a go route down the field, like, he might not even be in the progression, but he's going to pull the safety, and then guess what's open? That Kincaid seam down the middle. Or he's going to pull, and then that Shakir or Samuel out route or screen or something. Like,
and if they don't respect that, Allen's going to take that shot.
Yeah.
A few times at least,
Is he going to catch it? I hope so, but like, you don't know. That's part of what makes it fun. But last year, like, he caught the ball that knocked the Bills out of the playoffs. Like, he caught that third down. He caught the one that beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game on 3rd and long, and they threw it up to him. He went and got it. Like, he's played with Mahomes. He's played with Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's the kind of guy you need. Like, he's fast and he's big and he runs the go route. We don't have anybody else who does that. Like, Keon Coleman is big and he's fast, but he's not that kind of receiver. Like, you need that deep threat to stretch it out. So, like, no, is MVS going to have like an all-pro type season? Is he going to be the number one? Is he going to get 80 targets? Hell no. But is he a guy that you need in this offense? Absolutely.
Hey, don't tell Dave that he can't have an all-pro season. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation for another time. But like, he's just the kind of guy you need.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely something that I think, like we've been saying the past few weeks, he's got the experience that nobody else in this roster has when it comes to, one, not only just being in the league a while, but being on good teams, being with good quarterbacks, being with guys that have experience in winning situations. And I know I'm seeing a lot about drops and everything. Everybody has drops. There's reasons some of these guys haven't been on rosters over the past few years as well that other people are raving about. Like, if one drop is that big of an issue against some teams, I mean, Diggs had a drop last year again in the biggest moment of the game. Like, if we wanted to, like, it's all over, and you can look at numbers, you can look at the drop rate, and MVS's drop rate isn't necessarily that big of a thing. It's not the best, but it's not like he's what has one of the worst in the league, right? I mean, it's back and forth, and I get the concern with MVS, but at the end of the day, he's been on winning football teams, and part of winning teams.
I just did some quick Googling. The average drop percentage in the NFL last season was 6.7%. MVS was at 7.1. Like, it's not like the guy drops everything. Like, I think just because the kind of receiver that he is, he runs those deep routes. Like, when he drops it, you'll remember it because it was probably going to be a touchdown, which goes to show how often he gets open. Like, if he drops like a slant across the middle, no one's going to remember that. But you remember the ones where, like, that's going to be a touchdown because that's what most of his targets are. They're deep balls. So, yeah, like, he's going to have a role. I just think, like, maybe because he came from Kansas City and he won a Super Bowl, people are thinking like, oh, he's going to be like the number one receiver. Like, no, he's going to be 4, 5, or 6, but like, he's the kind of skill set that this team doesn't have and I think needs.
Yeah, and I do think, like you said, it's also because he was on good teams and they were in bigger moments, they're remembered more. Where, I mean, you have guys like Isabella, you have guys like Kamler, like, we don't remember anything bad that they did because they never were in those positions that MVS was in, or even Davis or Diggs. They weren't in those positions. So I think Hamler is kind of a lock at this point, I think, to make the team, in my opinion. And I think we should expect him to be on the team. And I think we should ease up maybe on how much we're concerned with MVS, because at the end of the day, he's been on winning football teams, and winning football teams have wanted him in his career. So if winning football teams want him, I'll gladly take him on this team, especially in the wide receiver by committee. But do we got any last little bit on receivers before we get into the last topic before we get into my 1 minute here?
No, let's roll the coverage to the safeties.
Yeah. So, yeah, we talked a little bit about injuries all show today. I mean, it's been kind of a big topic about injuries. We've known the injuries for the safety position for a while now. So I do just kind of want to ask you guys, we have the comment here, still need a safety. Is it not being talked about enough that the Bills might need some safety help? And if so, I also want to talk about, Justin Simmons. Did you sign? I know, Lance, you were all over it all offseason calling for it. He signed an $8 million deal. Yes, the Bills could have made that type of offer. Do you think they should have been more aggressive with Simmons? And do you think they should be more aggressive maybe in the safety market right now outside of Simmons? Lance, we'll start with you since we know how much you're biting at the chain there for pulling at the chain there for Justin Simmons.
I just would have liked to have like a sure thing, right? Like I don't want to have this doubt, this uncertainty. Mike Edwards is going to be healthy. Cole Bishop, it's all this unknown crap. Like, no, go get the sure thing. The thing's going to start for you and be consistent over the year, and spend the coin to do it. Now, I understand the being not wanting to because, yeah, he obviously is figuring out what this cap situation is going to be, and he just doesn't want to push anything, into next year because he feels like his opportunity to complete this build for the run is going to be next year with the cap space they're going to have, and he doesn't want to, spend any of that. But I think he could have there. I just think this would have been a smart place to put it because it's a sure thing that's going to get you a starter out of the deal and allow Taylor Rapp to go and spend the time in his natural position, and then when you want to play 3 safety looks, you have some guys to do it. But they know the health of Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop more than I do. I haven't, there's not really much to be seen yet on when these guys are going to be available that I've read or seen. So like maybe they think Edwards and Bishop are going to be fine to roll out week 1 with very little preseason. That's not what they've said, but I don't know. I just would have liked the sure thing at safety, and putting out DeMar Hamlin week 1 isn't necessarily my favorite idea.
Yeah, I feel like there had to have been some other reason that they didn't want Simmons, because at 1 year, $8 million, that seems like something they could have figured out. Or maybe they talked to him and he wasn't interested in coming. Like we really don't know. There had to have just been something they didn't like about him, or they didn't think he would fit, or something. But yeah,
which is weird because they brought in Kareem Jackson, which isn't necessarily like a culture guy. You guys getting suspended all over the place for dirty hits, so it's kind of like, I don't know, you bring in that dude, but like you can't bring in like a sure starter,
Yeah, because their defense wasn't old enough. But yeah, that was an interesting one. But yeah, who knows? Like, no, I don't feel great about where the safeties are now. Outside of a trade, though, we're kind of like stuck with what we got. And it's very possible to make a trade during the season if Bishop's injury takes longer. We still don't know exactly what it is from any like real source. Mike Edwards, who knows? Like he's been pretty injury prone, and a hamstring thing is probably going to keep nagging him as the season goes on. But last year at corner, they weren't satisfied. They went out and they got Rasul Douglas, which was like a slam dunk of a move. So I could see them trying to maybe do something like that early in the season if it isn't there, because we do have like $8 million in cap space. We have some to make move we need to. But yeah, the safeties, I can't say that they're exactly going to plan. Taylor Rapp, I think we all knew was going to be penciled in as a starter. He's looked solid. Yeah, I guess we're going to roll with DeMar Hamlin and see. Maybe the guys will be healthier sooner than we think. But yeah, there just had to have been something about Simmons that they either didn't like, or maybe he just wasn't interested in coming to the Bills for whatever reason. Maybe he's smart and doesn't like the cold.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Scott said, it's a little bit kind of confusing why they might not have gone aggressively at him. Maybe they know more about the injuries to Edwards and to Bishop, that they're confident in saying, hey, we're just going to let them come back and we'll be fine once they come back. And that's good enough. We'll have confidence in Hamlin to hold it down until they get back and we'll be good. But yeah, I mean, it would have been nice. I mean, the Falcons, by the way, are making some phenomenal moves this offseason, in my opinion, maybe besides their first round draft pick. But, it's we don't know the behind the scenes, right? We don't know what would have happened. We don't know if Brandon Beane called Simmons' agent and Simmons' agent was said, nope, we do not want to come to Buffalo. We're good. Thank you very much. And hang up. We don't know that. We have no idea. So it is a little bit mind-boggling that they haven't done a little bit more maybe at safety, like Lance said with Kareem Jackson. That one was also a head-scratcher. Even when the move was made, I was a little bit shocked by that. But they brought in other guys, Burgess they brought in, who haven't really heard too much about. But maybe they just have a little bit more confidence in who they have right now than maybe the rest of us do. So
And I'm not like a safety genius. I don't know a lot about the position. I'm not going to claim to. I watch a lot of, line play, but like D Delaney was brought in and whatever, and you just hear nothing about the guy. And they're signing other guys, and it's like, are they going over him now, or where is he at? And like I said, there's just all this uncertainty, and it's like, just go get the damn sure thing.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it also could be that they wanted to maybe save the money till, again, trade deadline. Maybe make a move at a different position, because we have seen in years past safeties come in and play better in a Sean McDermott defense, and they're just banking on the same thing, saying, hey, once it gets to week 7, 8, then they'll make a move for a different position, because that's maybe not as high of a need. Maybe safety's not as high of a need as maybe they think that a different position could be once it does get to that deadline.
Bean's definitely got his plan with the money, and we know that, like, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind, like, he's not doing things because of this scheme that he's building for. And whether it's moves this year or, the future, like, he's just going to be stubborn about it and do his thing the way he thinks this is going to, end up resulting in a championship or multiple championships for this team, given Josh Allen at quarterback. And I think with that Minnesota pick next year and things like that, coupled with some salary, they're going to be able to really, fortify this offense in next season. And who's to say they aren't going to have a pretty dynamic one this year either.
And who says Justin Simmons isn't a Bill next year? Who knows? We don't know. But I mean, that's all I got, at least for the safety position. You guys got anything else for the safety position?
No.
All right. Well, then that does bring it to, I believe, my 1 minute here we got. And then that is going to do it once I'm all done here. So for my 1 minute this week, I know we're not exactly right up against the wall when it comes to the season starting, but I just wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts, mid-August, see what you guys' thoughts on the schedule. We've talked about it a little bit in past episodes, but just what is the game you're looking forward to the most? What are you most excited for this season? There's a lot of great games. Obviously, we talked about the Jaguars game with guys former Bills coming back. Everybody loves a good rivalry game with the Dolphins. The Jets come in. They play the Ravens. Chiefs, Niners, down the list, right? There's great teams that the Bills are going to be playing. For me, I'm going to go simply just the Baltimore Ravens game. I mean, that one to me it's going to be earlier in the season, week 4. In Baltimore, night game. It's going to be a very good test for this team early in the season. Also, who knows? Maybe triple coverage is there in Baltimore for that game. Who knows? We don't know. But that's going to be the one that for me is the most exciting one, at least right off the bat. I'm really excited for the Ravens game. So let us know down below what you guys think. Which game are you most excited for before the season starts? Looking at the schedule right now.
That was going to be mine, because I will be at this one because I live about half a mile from the Ravens Stadium. So super excited for that one. Like I've mentioned, if anybody's going to be in town for that one, hit me up. Would love to meet up, grab a beer, tailgate, do whatever, watch the Bills win. But since you stole mine, I'm going to say the 49ers game on Monday night at home.
Come on, man. Just because you got yours stolen, then you're going to step all over mine? Come on.
I think that's a fun one. Like, it's a team we only play once every 4 years. And it's the first time we've seen like this reiteration of the 49ers where they're like maybe the best team in the NFL. They've gone to, a couple Super Bowls in the past few seasons. Brock Purdy is fun to watch. We got Deebo Samuel. Who knows who else? Christian McCaffrey. I've never seen Christian McCaffrey play live, and I hope he's healthy by the time this game comes around, because I would love to. He's just such a fun football player to watch. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. As the NFC teams, you don't play them as often, and when you got maybe 2 of the best 5 teams in the NFL going at it at home on Monday night, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, my best friend's a Niners fan, so he's going to be coming up for the game, and I'm just excited to have that, from a personal note, to just spend time with the guy, and also watch, 2 of the best teams in the NFL compete with a lot of great players. We'll see how that Ayuk thing shakes out, if he's still a Niner or not. And then the Chiefs game, Akeem and I are talking about maybe him coming up and going to the game with me. So I'm a little excited about that as well. Again, just to spend the games with some of the people that I, may get to this season. And I think that would be a lot of fun. So, we're going to be out at the Big Tree in this season. So if you guys are around ever, for tailgates and stuff, stop on over. Shout out to the Big Tree Inn. You can get a hold of them on their Facebook page too. They do have season passes for parking available. I believe it's $400 for the season. So if you guys are looking for a place to park still out there and you need a place, go on to the Big Tree in OP Facebook page and check out their contact information to get in touch with the right people and get that parking pass. They're going to hopefully have that thing sold out. We're going to be there. 97 Rocks there. The Water Buffaloes, 716 are there. So really cool opportunity for us and for me, and I'm looking forward to it. So if you guys do have the need, check that out.
Yeah, and I did see Patrick here talking also about the Dolphins being a game, and like we said, rivalry games, man, they're always just it's a little bit more energy from the get-go in those games, and it's always good to hopefully see Dolphins fans lose their mind after losing to the Bills, and hopefully in that November game, that will be a huge one in Buffalo at 1 o'clock, so hopefully they can pull the win out there against the Finns there. But yeah, I mean, there's so many games, man, that on the schedule that just are phenomenal, especially even at home too. I mean, I know a lot of people wish the Texans were at home, but you still, like we said, we got the Jags coming, Cardinals in week 1 too. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s first game, that's going to be great to see. You got the Chiefs, as Lance mentioned, the Patriots even too. It's a late season, so maybe we do see a little bit of rookie Drake May. Right, you got the Jets still coming in, so it's a great schedule for the Bills this year, home and away. So do let us know what you guys think. But I do believe that is going to do it for us. But before we hop off, just remember, if you are on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. We love all of those things for us. It helps us out a lot here at Built in Buffalo. Check out the other shows that are going on. Tomorrow night is the Founders Pod with Dave and Akeem. So do check that out as well. And then if you're on Facebook, if you could share it on Facebook with everybody, just that would be amazing for us, help us out. It's been another awesome show with you guys. You guys were awesome in the comments. A little bit of back and forth there was really awesome. I always love doing that with you guys. And know Scott and Lance love it as well. Just difference of opinions, but it's respectful difference of opinions, right? So, just let us know what you guys want to hear us talk about next week, what you guys want to hear. I know I saw, I believe it was Roy. Roy was talking about doing a roster projection. Maybe we do a combined one next week for all three of us, because I know the one show we did all three of our own. It did take a long time, so maybe we'll do a little combined one next week. We'll see. But I mean, it's we're getting closer. We're 1 week closer. Do you guys got anything though before we call it a night here?
Yeah, last weekend without regular season football of some kind is this weekend. We got week 0 college football next week. Georgia Tech, Notre Dame over in Ireland. I think Nevada plays somebody. There's 4 games next weekend. But yeah, last weekend without regular season football. Just clap it up for us. We did it. We made it through the dark times, and we got 6 months of exciting football ahead of us, and can't wait to spend it with all of you.
Yeah, appreciate everyone out there. Again, like you said, please continue to comment, subscribe to our channels, get the notifications, everything like that. And hope to see you guys out at the Big Tree in Orchard Park this season. And other than that, I think we have one thing left to say, boys. Go Bills.